this podcast will fail, and that's probably okay. But then again, I could be completely wrong, so who really knows? And this is episode 73. This podcast will fail. I am your host, and I am just some guy. Who I am is completely irrelevant to the conversations that I come here to have with you, with myself, and today with a good friend and colleague, Matt. Hello, dear friend.
Hey there. How are you?
I am well. Thank you for spending a little time with me on a Sunday night here on this here podcast.
Very happy to do it. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, and I've mentioned Matt a few times here and there early on in the podcast when I wasn't telling anybody what I was doing at all, and then slowly opened up to start to talk to you about the ins and outs of this, and a few other folks. And you were on that still particularly short list of people in my real life that actually know that this recording even happens.
It's kind of an honor, honestly.
Well, yeah, I want to be anonymous in a way, but it's hard. It's getting really hard to stay anonymous at this point. It's kind of creeping up on me.
Yeah, I can see where there's a certain amount of fun in anonymity, but yeah, I think the unmasking will be a lot of fun too.
Well, listen, I don't know if I'm ever going to go that far. I don't know. I don't know that there's a full-on unmasking for me at any point, but being able to admit to more people in my actual day-to-day life that this thing exists, and I would love for them to consume the media, but I'm not out for that. It's not why we're doing this. It's like this is the anti-everything. But anyways, so you are, and I said this a few minutes ago, and I'll say it again because it's true. You are my podcast guy. So I just kind of want to set up for anybody that's listening to this who you are. You and I work together, right? We co-manage a team of, I think it's like the modern day equivalent of the Bad News Bears.
Basically, yeah.
Except I truly don't think we ever will win a game, but that's okay.
There's something charming about that futility, isn't there?
There is like, hey, you go, you little go-getters. You're horrible. That's okay. That's all right. But I've known you for a good larger portion of the 7 or so years I've been in the company. I know you've been in the company. Is it now 19 something, 16, 19 years?
Are we allowed to swear?
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Go ahead.
Too goddamn long. Yeah, coming up on 20 years.
Coming up on 20 years. Okay. All right. And we crossed paths a bunch of times in different departments. And then you and I finally landed in our particular corner of the world with the particular mess that they go. That's fine.
I really thought you were going to say predicament.
No, I don't know. It's not really a predicament. It's more of, it's like a broken, rusty machine in the corner that we're supposed to just keep it turning. Just keep turning the damn thing. I know, but it's seizing up. I know, fix that, but just keep it turning.
Just keep shoveling the coal. It'll be fine.
And just shovel the coal, get some WD-40, and you'll be fine. But outside of that, I know that you are a well-versed media type person. You have been involved in podcasting for a good long time. I know that when I initially started working with you, you were working literally in an AM radio type of show situation as a producer.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll shut up for a second, and I would rather have you tell me a little bit about that history and who you are as far as a content creator and an audio guy.
Sure. So it started way back in the late 90s. I went to school for radio production right at the dawn of Napster. So at the exact wrong time to go into radio. So radio kind of, flamed out pretty dramatically at that point. So I ended up kind of getting into, the call center world for a long time, and all that kind of laid dormant for a long time. I did a couple like internet radio things. Nothing really caught fire. It was like 2 or 3 shows at a time. And then a buddy of mine, Magnus, asked me to come in and produce his radio show, and it totally rekindled my love for radio and kind of, talking into the ether, as it were. So that show kind of ran its course on the radio. We took it off and did a podcast version for a little while. And then it kind of blossomed into me I've got 2 different podcasts that I host, and what are we up to now? 6 on the podcast network that I'm kind of building at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really fun to kind of not just, sit and talk with my friends about the things that they really enjoy, but it's fun to get other voices out there. And I like putting things out there that I would want to listen to on my way back and forth from work, or if I'm doing dishes or whatever. I think podcasting is that perfect medium for, I don't want to say background noise, but it's kind of like having a friend over while you're doing your chores kind of thing.
I've heard similar from some other contemporaries of ours, and I guess now this is interesting to me because you and I, we're pretty close in age, so it's not it can't possibly be an age thing, so it's just got to be a me thing. Several other folks have said to me that notion that the podcast is a great thing to have on as background noise in the back, and as a companion, right, as you're driving, as you're whatever you said, doing dishes, cooking dinner. I've struggled with that. And I guess it's just a me thing, like an attention span thing. And somebody said to me recently, you must be one of those people that shushes someone if they come in the room and you're watching a show. Get out right now. You don't know me. So I guess I don't have that multitask ability. I was attributing it to my age, but I'm clearly off base here. The millennials aren't as bad as I say they are.
The genesis of me as a consumer of that kind of stuff is when I was a kid, my brother and I would play, whatever Nintendo game it was, and we would listen to. It's weird, but my brother and I were like 12 or 13. Well, probably a little bit older. But we were listening to the Don and Mike show, which was kind of a drive time pseudo shock jockey show that was on AM radio for a while in the mid to late 90s. And that was kind of where I was like, oh, this is where the switch flipped for me. Like I always liked oldies radio because, I liked that whole boss jock sound. And here these guys are telling, off-color jokes, but do it with all this like boss jock kind of production. I'm like, oh, this is great. This is exactly what I want to listen to as I'm playing video games. It's way more entertaining than just the bleep bloop of the Nintendo.
I think the closest I can come to relating to that is for me, probably 10 years earlier was Dr. Demento. Dr. Demento was huge for me. My mom, I recall always listening to like Wolfman Jack and that sort of, the true old fashioned disc jockey, spinning the records as they're talking. But for me, there was something magical about Dr. Demento's radio show. So I that's about the closest I think I can come to an analog to that.
Dr. Demento is great. He's basically a horror host for parody songs, and that's unbeatable. Those are like, it's catnip for kids. Like, it makes me sad that there's not more Dr. Demento out there now.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I think he is broadcasting online. I think he still has a website and he still does something out there. Yeah, very recently, I think like last year, I might have caught an interview with him on like NPR or somewhere, and he's still kicking. He's out there doing it, as far as I know. That's worth looking up, I think.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's kind of where I got that. It's a combination. I have this, and this from the movies I like too, but I have this love for schlock, and I have this love for that like late 50s, early 60s aesthetic in media. And those guys kind of pull that in, and that's kind of, it just broke my brain in a certain way. And I've been chasing that since. That's why I went to school for radio, is I wanted to be Don Geronimo. Which was, again, in hindsight, a poor choice. It was either that or a physician's assistant, but I can't do math for shit. So,
this is interesting to hear you say this, because now I can see, I can almost see a little bit of like a multiverse parallel that happened here, because your touch point with that show and that host resulted in a different outcome than my touch point with a radio guy was, that I think I told you the story, the overnight guy at WCMF, and spent the night in the CMF studios. And the next morning I said, I got to do this. I want to do this. He says, yeah, okay, go ahead. Or go get a real freaking job and don't spend 20 years getting screwed over and stabbed in the back and never making any money. So I didn't pursue it, even though I wanted to.
That was it. That guy made his entire living off being a landlord. It had nothing to do with the radio show he did. That was just gravy.
Exactly. And I think, and so when you and I really first met, and that's where I mentioned the AM radio piece, was you had me on Magnus's show as a guest because I was a local YouTuber. And I saw what you did in that studio, which I know we could very loosely define as a studio.
It was only about
that closet with a piece of glass in the middle.
It's only about a half a step higher than what I'm doing right now in my office at home.
But anyways, it was still like, as soon as I walked in, and it was, man, there was that magic, there was that electricity of like, this is real radio. This shit's going to be broadcast out onto people's, receivers. There's still a magic to that all these years later.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the minute I put my hands on that board at the radio station, it gave me such a flashback to doing it. The first time I ever did radio, I was in high school, and it was a local jazz station, and they had a really old board. I'm talking ancient, like the pots that had the giant, like Tune in Tokyo knobs. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like 2-inch knobs that you'd fade stuff in and out. And there's a magic to that because it's so analog and it's so tactile. And it was the same thing when I hit that board at the radio station. They had the big red and green buttons to put stuff on and off air or in cue, or the big long faders. And it's just, there's something so great about that. Just like the feel of, yes, this is what I'm doing. I'm now projecting this out to the entire city. It's kind of great.
Well, and I don't know what other opportunities are really going to exist in the long run. I don't know where that whole thing's going. But I missed the segue because you gave me a perfect setup and a segue, and then I got distracted.
Podcasting.
But yeah, that's okay. And I know your love of horror and schlock and cinema in general. So the other big piece of your creative life is being involved with a film festival.
Yes.
That I've always found fascinating, and you've shared with me story upon story of dealing with this group of people that are just trying to put on a film festival every single year. And I invite you to share a little about that.
It's a genre film festival. It's horror, comedy, dark comedy, action. But it's myself and 8 of my friends, 2 of which are kind of our father figures in the whole situation. They kind of herd us like cats. But the 9 of us have kind of become this extended family who try to put this show on. We're like, to go back to the 60s style schlock, we're basically at this point like a Partridge family band kind of thing, of these weirdos screening movies and trying to put them up on a platform for people to see, whether it's in person or virtually. And it's just so much fun to do. We've made friends with filmmakers that I don't think we ordinarily would have. We showed one short where it revolves around giant pimples being popped.
Okay.
So yeah, the whole thing, and offline I will send you a link to that short if you want to see it. It's nauseating, but it's wonderful. It's a dark fairy tale on like the Neil Gaiman model.
Not something I watch in the room with my wife. Is
probably
what
not, but the kids will probably get a kick out of it.
Oh, okay, good.
Actually, your wife might too, because like I say, it's a real like Neil Gaiman, kind of light but dark horror kind of.
No, that's true. She reads a lot of Neil Gaiman, so that may translate.
So
she's looking at me right now.
As an afternoon snack prior to that showing, we handed out pudding cups. We handed out vanilla pudding cups to everybody in the audience. So they all came out and they grabbed their vanilla pudding cups, and they're sitting there before the show and just going to town on these little snack packs. And then we rolled the film, and the title of the film is It's Not Custard.
Oh,
And
dear.
There's a wall full of zits that are just getting crunched and then emptied into these dishes. And it all for the world looks like the pudding we just fed the 100 people
Vanilla pudding you just fed you
in the audience. And the moment that it dawned on everybody in that crowd what we did and what that did to kind of heighten the movie. Oh, it was beautiful. Like it made the entire weekend for me. Because you could just feel 85 people in that audience go, "Oh my God." And it was just electric. So yeah, that's what we do as a film festival.
That's and I know because you've shared with me 2 years in a row the sheer amount of work and planning and resource gathering and finagling and I'm just constantly impressed with the amount of work that even with 9 people that it just seems like you guys have to overcome an obstacle every day, if not every week, leading up months in advance, and somehow you manage to pull it off every year. How many years now?
This is our second. We're going into our third. But
okay,
there's all that frustration and so much aggro that goes into it. But again, that weekend comes in the year, and our family of 9 turns into a family of 100, 150, 200 people, where they just all kind of click in and have the same vibe, and we all talk the same thing, and we'll stand in a lobby, and it could be a complete stranger I've never seen in my life, and I can stand there and have a conversation about movies with them or what they just saw, and it's just there's so much joy that goes into it.
Well, it's connection, right? It's that human connection on a shared whatever it is, right?
That's it.
Product or genre or experience.
Exactly. And it's an amazing connection to make with people that you'd never in a million years think you'd meet. But once you do, you're like, oh wow, this is now a friend for life. And this is why I just worked for a year and pushed that boulder up the hill, even though it fell down 4 feet every morning. It's
right.
Yeah. It's
well, and this year in particular, I'm sure oh yeah, wait a minute. We can't actually put asses in seats, can we? We can't really actually do that. Huh.
That was the wildest part, figuring out how that would work. We were initially going to be an in-person film festival, and then the year happened, and we had to turn on a dime and figure out how to do it virtually.
Right.
But yeah, what ended up happening was we set up a Discord, which is another Gen Z millennial thing that I never really used.
But they reacted, right? They responded, they got in, they got on, and by all accounts, it sounds like you guys had a pretty decent year.
It was a blast. It all functioned like an old IRC chat, or like
oh gosh.
Yeah.
An old BBB message board. Is that what we're talking about?
Now I'm speaking your language, the IRC chat.
We're so old. That's okay. We still got some vibrancy and some life left in us, apparently. So okay. Well, I'm interested then to kind of pivot a little bit and get into the subject matter for this season 4 here, coming to terms. And so, as I kind of told you in the setup initially, it's kind of been a month of looking at life, looking at experiences, and I've gotten some great stories from other folks about things that they have had to come to terms with in life. And it really, there's no wrong answer to it. It's your experiences, decisions you have made, situations you have been in or not in your control. And I wonder if you have anything you can point to as a time that you had to come to terms with something in life, and what the process was. How did you come to terms with whatever it was?
Yeah, honestly, it's kind of a long road to get there. But it's a thing that, so
I got nothing but time, pal. You have the floor, sir.
So I will preface it with one thing. When decisions are made, I usually make the wrong one.
Okay.
I will put it this way for anybody that is a technology person. I owned a Dreamcast. When Blu-ray and HD DVD came out, I went HD DVD. I'm sure if I was of the age of reason, I would have chosen New Coke over Classic Coke. That's just how my brain works. I don't know why, but that's how it goes. But what I've learned over the last 25 years now, and I didn't really, this is where the big turn is. There was always something that was kind of missing or something that wasn't quite right. I'd come home from school. School was relatively easy. High school, I just kind of powered through it. I didn't really pay much attention to anything. I just kind of did what I had to do. Came home and sat in a dark room and watched movies. Didn't really talk to anybody, or I played video games. My brother would come in. We'd listen to that radio show. But it was usually just kind of a dark room, and then I'd eat dinner and go to bed. I went to college. I pretty much kept to myself. Same thing, except school wasn't so easy anymore. I actually had to pay attention to it, and I could not figure that out for the life of me. But again, I'd go back to my room, and it would be dark, and I just wouldn't want to go anywhere. I got to my senior year in college, and I ended up dropping out of college because I couldn't face going to class. I would just stay in my room in the dark. So I dropped out. And this kind of cycle happened for a long, long time. Almost got fired from the job that we're in. My third year in, because I just couldn't get out of bed to go to work. But I didn't know why. It was just a thing that happened. Now, this was the late 90s and early 2000s, So, and this cycle just keeps happening where I can't focus on things, and things get real dark, and I can't get up, and this and that. I end up, going through life for a while, just kind of stumbling through. Ended up getting married, to a person that she's a saint. Especially for putting up with me in these ups and downs and weird, mood swings and such.
Mm-hmm.
And then these bad decisions happen, spending money that I didn't really have and all this and that. And I finally hit a point where I couldn't do it anymore. And I looked around and I was like, well, why is this happening? Oh yeah, well, I should probably go see somebody and get some help. Because I didn't really have any place else to go. And it was a thing where, in the 90s and when I was growing up, you didn't really get help for things. You just kind of powered through it and did the best you could. And as time went on, I realized, oh yeah, I should probably talk to somebody because it sounds a lot like I have some issues. So after everything bottomed out for me, I talked to my wife, and she was like, well, maybe you should go talk to somebody. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. And what I found out was, from the time I was probably about 14 until 3 years ago, I'd been dealing with, clinical depression and ADHD that was just completely undiagnosed, untreated, unmanaged. And it was just leading to all these, crazy ups and downs, these bizarre mood swings, this, kind of situation where it was just, anything for serotonin kind of idea.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I got to a point where I had to go and talk to somebody and understand why that was happening. And it kind of restarted my life. Unfortunately, fortunately, I guess. Like I say, it was only a couple of years ago, but it was kind of a reboot of my life. To the point that I'm a little bit more together than probably when you and I first met.
I giggle and you make me laugh out loud for that one, pal, because it is interesting when you're not that guy, never have been to me, right? You and I have been working directly together for a year and a half now. Again, collegial sort of acquaintances for 3 or 4 years. Never have you come off to me as the guy that didn't have your shit together. right? You always, and I told you this very recently, actually, I think I just told you this like a couple weeks ago, like you always came off to me as that, like that person who was able to keep their shit together and actually function and like, just, I don't know. It's I know, cause you fall into the same, self-deprecation, traps that I do, right? I think
Oh yeah,
it's like a, what is it? A defense mechanism in a way to instantly go, no, I'm a fuck up. Don't,
for
don't
sure.
mistake me.
For sure. Don't get it twisted. I'm not what you think I am. Yeah, and a lot of it is born from that. Like I say, for the there's a stigma to taking care of mental health if you're a certain age. Um, you know, so I never really bought into it. I just listened to my music a little bit louder and tried to get through whatever I was getting through.
I think it's a generational thing too, because, I'm sure that for our parents, it was a completely taboo subject, and that stuff didn't exist unless you were of wealth, right? Things like psychiatrists and counselors. I don't think growing up there was such a thing as a counselor. I don't think that role existed, quite frankly. I think it was just you go to a shrink or you go to a psychiatrist, but that was for
Right.
the well-to-do people.
The well-to-do or the really crazy.
Or the really crazy. Yeah. The actually identifiables. But you obviously went through that period of life then you didn't have a base of reference. There wasn't a language revolving around you that would have explained why I guess to say were the way you were from age 14 to whenever. It's just, this is just who I am.
Right.
And yet,
And that was exactly it.
and there's kind of like a revelation all of a sudden. And so was it your wife that kind of spawned that realization in you, or what was the moment that kind of made you go, wait a minute, and had you turn that corner?
No, I mean, if I'm honest, it was kind of one of those rock bottom moments where, we kind of took an inventory of everything I had laid waste to in our lives. And she was like, okay, so this needs to change and you need to go talk to someone because this isn't going to work. So it's a turning point that was, I don't want to say it was forced on me or was an ultimatum, but it was a certain moment where I just took a step back and went, I've got people relying on me now. Like at a certain point, like, and if you talk to people that knew me in prior years, I was always like, yeah, I'll just you do whatever. And whatever time you need of mine, you can have, cause it's useless to me. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
There's nothing riding on this time. It's useless for me. And my wife just kind of put it into pretty drastic relief when she said, you have to take the time to fix this. Cause if not, it's broken irrevocably, and that's really what it hinged on. And then, yeah, when I started talking to someone and we started going through everything, from teenage years up to the present time, I was like, oh shit, this has been something that's gone untreated almost my entire life.
Mm-hmm. And
then I took a step back further and went, oh yeah, my family has this too. So this is kind of a genetic thing.
Well, maybe, I always knew these people were nuts, but I didn't make that connection.
I had no idea it was a clinical thing.
I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, and even now it's interesting that the way that whole conversation has evolved in our society from, here we are again, 40 years ago, what that even meant to anybody, to, I guess, 25 years ago, 2025 to you and me, where it was just sort of, okay, it's maybe taboo and you just kind of don't talk about those things. And that's just a weird kid to, right. I mean, now having adult children that were the ones to come to me at age 15 and 16 and say, Dad, I need some help. I'm fucked up. And be able to openly embrace those conversations and seek help it's so interesting how the world has evolved around that very conversation.
And I really envy that the kids are, number one, so self-aware that they can say that, and number two, that you have that structure, that they have that trust in you that you're going to be able to find them that help. I think it's amazing, and I'm glad the culture's kind of evolved to that point. Because if I'd gone to my mom at age 17 and said, I think I'm ADHD, and I'm pretty sure I'm clinically depressed. Number one, it would have ruined her life.
Not my baby.
What's wrong with this kid? Right, exactly. And number two, I don't know what resources we would have even had to deal with it.
Right.
I was with somebody for a while that had very similar issues, and she was, the only resources she had at that point were like input patients. So she was gone for weeks at a time.
Oh, sure.
Because that was the only way they knew what to do.
Yeah, the whole committed kind of thing, right? And you're going to go in this quiet little room over here, and here's a couple of pills.
Exactly.
That's such a thing, But again, it was probably not particularly easy. But I can say I'm glad that you had that person next to you who was able to kind of finally, say, pump the brakes here a second, right? We got to do something.
I honestly don't know where I'd be had that not happened.
Mm-hmm.
If I'd even still be here if that had not happened, which is a wild thing to sit there and think about. But
well, here again, I mean, these are conversations that just didn't happen, right? These were things that were not talked about, even. So where are you now in terms of like what do you find to be the struggle on a regular basis, right? Because if you've the last couple of years you've been able to tap into that resource of someone to kind of talk to and work through issues, to whatever happens to be that brings you that point. But where do you find yourself still having to kind of deal with things or come to terms with things even now?
I mean, it's not to kind of to spiral into the whole thing, but like we kind of kidded on the square a little bit earlier about the bad news bears thing. So there's a certain amount of inevitability in what we do, and no matter how hard we push, we're not really going to change the direction of that boat,
right?
And then the honest truth with the podcast thing, and I didn't really get it until you and I were sitting here talking about setting up the whole network and having everybody on it, and hopefully you at some point when you want to be,
of course.
It gives me something to selfishly, like I love everybody that's on it. I think everybody does amazing jobs. I think every show is really compelling. But selfishly, it gives me a way to kind of build something, and distract myself by kind of, this is something I can build and have that I know is having a positive effect, at least on the 7 or 8 people that are doing these shows, or the 12 people that are doing these shows, similar to the film festival. I know there's 100 people in this world that we're making a difference with. It's a Sisyphean effort to do it sometimes, but we do it, and there's an enjoyment there. And that's kind of what
did you say earlier? Like anything for serotonin, except that it seems like you have stumbled upon some healthier methods for generating a little bit of serotonin now and again.
Correct. Yeah. I think you're exactly right. Is that it's that it's that cheesy Dr. Phil replace something with something, right? So I'm not, spending money on stupid action figures or t-shirts or trips to go see this or that, putting it all on a credit card because, credit cards aren't real money. I'm not doing that. But instead, I'm kind of trying to build these little communities of like-minded people, and not just create serotonin for myself, but others, and that kind of gives me a place to push. I mean, plus I have an amazing family, like my wife and my kid. That's a serotonin boost, isn't it, man? Like
Absolutely. Of course.
you,
Right.
you see that face light up and you're like, oh shit, this is why I'm doing this.
I'll warn you in advance. There's less and less and less and less and less of that as they get as they get older.
I mean, yeah.
They used to greet me at the door, man. Now I see him for like 10 minutes a day. Oh, hi, Dad.
I got that tonight. I pulled in the driveway and he's just standing there and I can see him in the storm door just pogoing in the door, and I'm like, okay, this is why this keeps happening. This is why this is good.
Hold on to that for as long as you can, pal. Oh, Lordy.
Yeah.
But it's always interesting too, because I think you have sparked a thought in me about that, that idea of being I don't know, organizer, community organizer. I think loosely based term, but look, I defy anyone to find a content creator who does not, live for that whole, if you build it, they will come, right? We make shit because we want people to consume it and enjoy it and get, some type of reaction out of them, right? Any reaction, even if that was, man, that sucked, that was garbage. Hey, thanks for taking the time to watch.
Yeah.
But I think it takes it to a whole different level when you are now really taking the Field of Dreams idea to that level of saying, no, I'm going to create a playground. And I hope to meet some cool kids on that playground that I built for them to come and play on. And I get to play in it too. I had that experience years back, and there's times that I miss it dearly. And I've listened to you talk about some of those struggles of trying to keep people on the same page. And, but when it works, it's magic. It's absolute magic when you recognize that, yeah, I built it and these people are having a great time on those swings, and some other kids showed up to play on the seesaw, and it's a hell of a feeling, man.
It really is. Like, and that's kind of again, a thing that I didn't really think about. One of your prior guests asked me that question, like, what's the point of your podcast thing? Like, what are you trying to do with it? And I had a shitty answer for him. I didn't really have a good one. I was like, I don't know, man. I didn't think about it. It just seemed like a fun thing to do. But I think now that you and I are talking about it, I think the reality is that there's that joy in each one of those shows. You know what I mean? Where you can feel that passion in the people talking to each other. And there's an amount of to get real corny, but there's a lot of love that comes out of those, and it's just nice to know that there's a platform for that to come out, even if it's, two guys talking about professional wrestling, or, a guy exploring his thoughts about life, the universe, and everything, or, three friends just talking about what they had for brunch last week. It's a fascinating thing.
Well, and the real thing that sticks out to me is when I rewind the tape on this conversation and I think about you as being that quiet, right? I just go through my day, go to school. School's not really anything. It's cool. It's fine. I'm in my room. I'm watching movies or playing video games. There was like that closed off, not really interacting with much of anybody about much of anything. And here you are now that you have, had that revelation, that revelatory experience in your life, and you are, you're the greatest showman, in a weird sense, right? And it feels good to bring all of those performers together, and it's just such a complete 180 from where you started this story, and that just makes me feel good.
Thanks. Me too, actually. There's a band I really like. And the singer every night at the end of the show always says the same thing. He's been saying it for 10 years, to the point that people always chant along with him when he says it. It's like clockwork. But the thing he always says is that there's so much joy in what they do, and he's just happy that the people showed up to share in that joy with them. And it's a thing that when I saw him do it for the first time, I was like, wow, that's cool. And I've seen him do it in person, oh God, a dozen times now. And it's gotten to the point where I tear up when I hear him say it, even though I know what he's going to say. You know, I know word for word. I'm one of the people yelling so much joy back at him. But I think what I realized with that now is that I kind of feel what that energy is. You know, he's making something that 200 people show up for, and you know, sweat and spill beer on each other and sing and dance, and there's that community about it. And that's a thing that, yeah, you're right, it was missing for a long time with me, and it's nice to have that, and it's nice to be building that.
I know for me, the piece of it is finally coming to terms with there may not always be 200 people there. And I think for too many years, I was so fixated on that, on the, you know, what kind of result was going to come from the effort, that it impacted my ability to enjoy making things anymore. And, you know, talking to you more this year, talking to our mutual friend there, Caleb, I think is who you were referencing.
Yep.
Shortly ago, and realizing, and just this podcast, and recognizing I named it what I named it for a reason, to instantly dispel any notion that it matters. What, you know, it doesn't matter. I'm here to have a conversation and to pick people's brains, and it just feels good. And to hear you express so many things that feel familiar to me, it just, whew, yeah, it gives me a little bit of a vibe, a little bit of a chill, you know?
Yeah. Same. It's fun to hear you say the same things. I feel some, you know, some camaraderie and confirmation in that, you know.
Well, here again, like, we've been professional, you know, colleagues now for a bit, but to find out that there are some more common experiences than I ever would have expected to hear. And yes, by the way, we do need to have further conversations. It's your fault for getting sick and not being at work all week, but yes, we have further conversations about how I participate in your playground, and you show me where the gate is, because I miss that. I miss dealing with other people and helping them succeed, and seeing, you know, what else somebody else can make. I'm keenly interested in what you're making. I'm keenly interested in what Caleb's making, and so I think there's lots of opportunities on the horizon.
Dude, it's so much fun, and like I don't want to be crass and plug anything, but I'm gonna plug a show that I have no involvement in beyond listening to it when I, you know, master it. She does all the work for it. There's a show out there called Mimosas with My Besties. And it's a friend of mine and her two friends, and the two of them just talk, or the three of them just talk about whatever comes to mind, you know, from astrology to what was happening in the news to, you know, which animal they think would win in a fight, you know. And it's one of the most joyful, happy, positive experiences you can have in a week. Because you can just feel the love between them, and it's great. So I don't mean to plug something on your show for people to listen to, but
I don't care. Bring it in, plug them, give me the URL. What am I if not a vehicle for others? I don't, you know, come on.
I mean, and you said that thing about, you know, not looking at having 200 people in a room. I never look at analytics on anything when I'm putting podcasts out. I never pay attention to any of that, which is probably to my own detriment. But
no. Please let me correct you on that point, sir. It is so liberating not looking at them and not worrying about it, because again, I spent so many years just impacting my own mental health over things not getting viewership and listenership and responses, that, yeah, I think you're ahead of the curve by just saying, I'm here to make something. It doesn't, if somebody listens, that's great. That's fine. If we get a sponsor, fine, whatever. I don't care. But it's this is where I'm actually kind of arguing with Caleb lately, because he is totally anti, well, we're talking about a former guest, but I'm going to talk about him. Fuck him. He's totally anti infrastructure. He doesn't want anything to do with any kind of infrastructure whatsoever. He just wants to have the damn conversations.
Yeah.
And I go, but how are you going to put it in front of somebody? I don't care if anybody. Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
You're doing it for somebody.
You're doing it for yourself. Yeah. You're doing it for the person you're talking to. But those
are conversations you can have on your couch.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's recording it and putting it out.
Why? Why are you recording it and putting it out? So, Caleb, I know you're going to listen to this eventually. I'm calling you out, cowboy. Let's go. Let's make something happen.
Dragging you kicking and screaming.
Damn it. But I want to have more of these conversations. I'm really glad that this past couple months have been nuts professionally for all of us, personally for the world, trying not to get sick. But even just that, just slowly as I feel like our planets are starting to be in the same orbit, I'm really excited to see what kind of opportunities we have to have some more conversations and bring more voices to the table, and just be a part of something bigger.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing. And Caleb, this is for you. The whole point of doing these podcasts is that so many people talk past each other all the time. It's nice to have conversations with each other, even if it's, two people talking about beer while you're driving to work. I think for me as a podcast consumer, if I'm screaming at the radio, going, "No, you idiot! It was Charles Bronson in that movie," like, they got me.
They sucked you in.
How many times have you had that moment when you're listening to radio or a podcast and they say something wrong and you're like yelling to correct them, or they ask a question and you're answering it and you're like, "Oh shit, no, this not there."
I think those moments for me they're always a no, don't, dude, don't do it, don't. Oh, you fucking did it. Don't, you weren't supposed to say that. No, that is the wrong answer. Like I see this person's about to say something really stupid, and like, no, buddy, don't go there, and they freaking go there.
There's one podcast I listen to that's 100% what happens in it every single time. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes I feel like I'm going to get arrested for listening to it, but it always engages me.
So let's talk a little bit towards some specifics here. We obviously have a burgeoning podcast network. What, sir, is the name of such network?
It is the Lunchadore Podcast Network. Website in development.
Actually, and that's a piece I don't even know, right? Again, around infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Where is everybody? Where is this thing hiding? Because I don't even know where it is.
So right now there is no one place to see everything on the network.
Okay.
I've commissioned a logo that'll be done. When's Christmas? 2 weeks from now.
Week and a half, pal.
About that. And then the week between Christmas and New Year's, I'll be building a website and it'll all be out there. If you want to hear what's on it now, I'll just give you the litany of podcasts that we have currently.
Sure.
There's the Anomaly Presents podcast, which is all about genre movies. If you want to hear the best and brightest of that, we do an episode about the movie Cats. That is one of my favorite things I've ever done with anyone ever. It's a blast. We've got the Intercontinental Wrestling podcast with two Englishmen, one who currently lives in Boston and one is in the north of England, so it's intercontinental. And it's a blast. We've got the Beer Review Journal with a mutual friend of ours. He's He's the king of beers and the king of analytics. He watches all those download numbers, so I don't.
That kid has an Instagram game like I just can't even wrap my head around. He's got it.
He is a social media monster.
Yeah.
I love him for it. He does such a great job with it. The aforementioned Mimosas with My Besties. We've got Caleb's podcast, Caleb versus Self. And then eventually, hopefully, this podcast will fail.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's again. I think it really more comes down to you and I having the actual time to be to be able to talk about something other than the dumb shit we have to wade through every single day at work.
The goddamn hamster wheel we're on all the time.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, we'll get you hooked up with that, and then you can be a part of Lunchadore probably just about when the website launches.
Cool. Very cool.
So I'm looking forwed to it. It's a platform. Oh yeah, and Mind of Magnus. I feel terrible not mentioning Magnus.
No.
He was kind of
Magnus. Sorry, buddy.
We haven't done it in a fucking year. I miss that guy lately.
Really?
Like
you guys haven't? So
like,
did you just kind of fall off the radar with him, or?
Well, no. Magnus and I talk all the time. We text all the time. He's a part of the Anomaly crew. We ended up leaving the radio show just about when he hung up his own shingle. He's in business for himself now.
Okay.
So it's hard to pin him down to do a podcast weekly because, the dude's busier than.
Well, self-employed people, yeah, generally. I can see that.
Exactly. So it's hard to carve out the time because, it's free and he's got billable hours. So, but I love the dude. He's like a brother to me. Mind of Magnus. We've got the archive from RFR up if you want to hear any of the old shows up to and including, I believe, episode. I can shoot him the link for that. Oh, dude. Sorry.
I have a convenient duck sound effect for whenever somebody says my name.
I was doing so goddamn well.
Well, again, it's Caleb called me out because I was a guest on Caleb's show as well, and he just laid me bare about my bullshit with wanting to remain anonymous. I said, I'm an artist, leave me alone.
Yeah. All right, so I won't give you a link so you can look at Quack Quack's episode.
Thank you. I appreciate your discretion, sir.
but just know it was killer.
That was such a great night, man. That was such a great night. Awesome. Oh, you guys made my life that night. Even everything that went wrong. I know you and I just talked about this recently, but my wife and I show up and we're like, okay, I think we're in the right place. This sounds like the right spot. And you guys were both running late. And
it's the only time, the entire time we did that show together for 2 years. It's the only time that both of us were late.
I was just wandering around the parking lot, putting together a YouTube video for my channel.
It sucked.
I was making a video out of the whole thing and like not acknowledging the fact that okay, we're really, was I early? I don't know if not acknowledging any of that, just like doing all these panoramic shots of the building and doing all of these motion, all of the B-roll that I was capturing and little talk-ups about what an experience it is to be on the radio. And I'm thinking, if they don't show up pretty soon, I don't think I am going to be on the radio, but man, I'm going to sell this line.
If it fucking happens. Yeah,
and then both it turned out to be so cool. And it was just such a highlight to be in that studio with you guys. It really was.
Well, thanks, man. It was a pleasure to have you and your wife. It was so great. Like first time I got to meet your wife, which was awesome. You were amazing. It was just a great time. You were born for radio. You were born for the audio medium.
I have a face for radio. Indeed, I do.
I mean, I wasn't going to go that far.
That's okay. Only one person needs to think that I actually. And so, right, we've got our spouses behind us and supporting us. I think you've told me that your wife is even kind of nudged in a little bit on wanting to have some bigger pieces of this, right?
Yeah, I keep pushing her. She's got a great idea for a show. She just needs a partner for it. And the partner that I really want her to hook up with, one of them just got elected to public office, so that's off. Well. And the other one's trying to finish up her doctorate. But it's what she gets for having highfalutin friends.
What's the concept of the show?
It's just, being a parent in the modern world. which I feel like she's very involved in multiple online communities about being kind of a working mom in the current age kind of thing. And both of her friends, she's very funny. Like, she's way funnier than I'll ever be.
I haven't had the occasion to meet Mrs. Matt yet, so hopefully that happens
one day.
One day we can all come to a dinner party and not have to wear masks, and it'll be fantastic.
Be wonderful. But yeah, you'll realize why the phrase "better half" was invented.
I already know, pal.
But yeah, she's fantastic. And then the two partners I hope she hooks up with, one I know is not going to happen, but the other one is very funny. She used to be a stand-up comic, and is now going for her doctorate and is in development at a school here locally.
Okay.
So, and the two of them together are like a house on fire. It's hysterical. So she's going to be bigger than all of us. Well,
and again, we're here to just make sure that the swings go high enough and that the seesaw actually goes up and down, and then they'll let the kids shine as they will.
Hey man, all I did was mow down the cornfield. Whatever anybody decides to do after that's up to them.
Right. All right. Well, I think that I accomplished what I was hoping to accomplish. I really, honestly, I'm all kidding or anything or fun aside. I really, really appreciate you opening up about something so personal, and that's it's just I'm kind of honored that you would share that kind of a story and that kind of experience with me and with whoever happens to listen to this thing. So genuinely, I appreciate you taking the time to share your experiences and what you've gone through in life, man. It's great.
Sure. I appreciate you giving me the time to talk about it. It's been excellent.
All right. Well, I think that will do it for here. I will leave it for now. I will come back again on Monday, and we'll have some other conversations about some other things. Matt, I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, sir. I'll see you in a couple days at work, and talk to you then, buddy.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Talk to you soon.
All right, wherever you are out there, folks, thank you. Anybody that took the time to listen to this today, I appreciate you very much. I hope that wherever you are, you and yours are safe and healthy. I will talk to you next time. Have a good one.